Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on the Bottom Line. Of course, this is Kwesi Free, and you're welcome to the show wherever you're watching us from. This is the Bottom Line. We say business at the speed of thought, and let me announce to you that we are coming your way from our studios here at Ridge in Accra. We are live on DSTV channel 277, and this is the best business news analysis show that you can have on your airwaves. Tonight is a very big night. We have one very important person in the country who is going to share with us his thoughts on the economy and all the things that have been happening. Tomorrow, the Minister of Finance, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, will be on the floor of Parliament reading the mid-year review budget to the entire country. If you remember, some few months back, the beginning of the year, he had come with a 2023 budget under the theme Restoring and Sustaining Macroeconomic Stability. We are asking the very big question: have we been able to restore the macroeconomic stability? If you monitor the airwaves, and of course, all the economists, the professors that are speaking or that had been speaking, the issues had surrounded all the exogenous factors, the COVID-19 pandemic, the Russian-Ukrainian war, and a host of other factors. The fact that we are not a country that produces a lot of materials or things that we use here in the country, but we only export the raw materials that we have. And so things that are happening in other countries are going to affect us as a country. There was a concerted effort by government towards this area. Government had come into power, if you remember, around 2017 as well, on the promise of high productivity and low taxes. All of these things are what we are going to discuss tonight. Have we been able to achieve macroeconomic stability and into the microeconomic stability? Tonight, we have a very big person who is gracing our studios tonight. You want to stick and stay with us when I'm back? I will introduce my guest to you, and we will begin the discussions. Stay with us. You're welcome back from the break. I told you that tonight is a very big night. Tomorrow, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, will be on the floor of Parliament to present the mid-year review budget. And the 2023 budget, as read by the same person, the Finance Minister, was on the theme, Restoring Macroeconomic Stability. Tonight, we'll be asking a very big question, whether we're on the path to restoring macroeconomic stability with the IMF coming on board. And just tonight, or just today, we've had the Bank of Ghana, headed by the governor, review the monetary policy rate. We want to see a quick video of that. When we are back, I'll show you one or two slides. But just before I do that, let me introduce to you our guest tonight, Dr. Michael Ebu Sakara, founder and leader of the National Interest Movement. I'm sure when I mention the National Interest Movement, you would want to see who it actually is. It's our very own Dr. Ebu Sakara. Doc, good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here.
I hope you're doing very well.
By God's grace.
We are happy to have you tonight, especially to talk about the economy, which we know is your field. If we have time, we'll talk a bit about Agric.
Well, I'm more of the development person.
But just today, the Bank of Ghana has reviewed the monetary policy rate. I'll pick that video. I'll come back for your comment on that and go to some slides, and we get into the main interview.
Thank you.
Let's see if we can have the video.
Bank financing has been eliminated in the first 6 months of the year. Ghana's macroeconomic framework requires decisive tightening from both the fiscal and monetary side to anchor inflation expectations firmly on the declining path. Given these considerations and under the current circumstances, the committee has decided to increase the monetary policy rate by 0.5% to 30%. In the coming months, the committee will monitor closely incoming inflation data and will respond appropriately if needed, should inflation persist.
Well, so you welcome back from that video. I'll go straight into the discussions for tonight. And Doc, I don't know if you listen to the news, but of course, that's a video from the Bank of Ghana. And monetary policy rates. At some point, some time back, quite recently, we saw it go up, just up and up and up and up. And there were reasons cited. I don't know if we have been able to achieve those reasons yet as an economy. And today we've seen 29.5 now to 30%.
Well, it's a very marginal increase. 29.5 to 30% is a very marginal increase. Whether it will have the intended effect is another matter altogether. And I think this is basically what is typical of our economy, in the sense that, yes, we have this theoretical macroeconomic framework with a lot of the economy being in the informal sector. And then we make these little tweaks inside of the formal sector. And you're surprised that it does not have the intended effects. Because at the end of the day, a significant number of things going outside there are not affected by it. And I think that this is one of the issues which we have to stand back from and look at fundamentally. Because at the end of the day, using a fan in a very hot room, yes, it may blow some air over your face, but does it actually cool you when the whole room is getting hotter? And that's precisely the situation we're in now. The economy is heating up. Many of the indicators that we would like to see going the right way are rather going the opposite way.
It was a question I was going to ask, after this, that whether you think that we are on the path to a macroeconomic stability or revival.
Well, you see, to be honest with you, I think that we need to step back and really examine whether or not the path we're on is the right one in the first place. Because at the end of the day, what has happened over the years? Consistently, we have been following this path, and things keep getting worse and worse. If you look at every successive government, if we say democracy is a measure of good economic performance and 11 elections improves the economy, the question is, has it? And over successive elections, from Rawlings' time, Kufuor's time up till now, what has been the trend in the economy? And what has been the impact on people's standard of living? Those are the things that really matter, not the relative tweaks here and there. The bottom line is, what are the living conditions of people? And they have got worse. So we have to accept that voting and putting ballots in boxes does not necessarily deliver what you want. And if that is the case, there must be some other fundamental things that we are missing. And if we decide to look at those in a holistic framework, then maybe we can choose a path that is different to the one which we're on. And we keep making tweaks, and we are not getting the desired result, or in fact, it is still running away from us. There are many issues that we can talk about. Yes, some of it is intrinsic in the sense that it is built in. But the fact of the matter is, if you know you live in a windy climate, don't walk up to the edge of the cliff, and then when you're blown off the cliff, you say it is the wind. We have to look for a safer place to stand. And the real issues are that we have not taken the prudent measures, bearing in mind the nature of the economy we have, our own limited ability in the global space to control it, because a lot of the things are beyond us, but the things that are within our grasp, we consistently let go. We are consistently spending more than we earn. We are consistently increasing the wastage in the system. We are consistently increasing the corruption in the system. All those are deliberate choices that we make out of habit and out of an ingrained way of doing things. And some of us think it emanates from this democracy that we have.
But Doc, that's why the democracy is there. If, for example, Ghanaians are realizing, I cited from the beginning the example of the fundamentals to be productivity in the country. And the current government, for example, came on the promise of increasing productivity and reducing taxation. If you go back to their manifesto. And we are still not seeing that the structure of the economy is such that it doesn't support productivity, it doesn't support, for want of better words, forward thinking, to be able to restore all the macro and the micro indicators. And we are still where we are, artificial injections and so on and so forth. Where are we moving?
Well, this is why I'm saying that we need to take a realistic look. Look, people have things they should be responsible for and take responsibility for because they contributed to it. But beyond that, we need to decide this short-term government of 4 years, this adversarial system of multi-party democracy, is that the right framework within which you should be seeking the kind of development that we want? Will it ever deliver on those things? And if for some time we took a leap of faith, 1992, and said, yes, let's try it and see. Are you with me? Because they say that, everybody who's democratic, these indicators improve, et cetera, and we decided, okay, for the sake of it, let's try it. We've tried it. How come it has not delivered on those things? The architecture of the economy is still the same. In fact, there's reduced state capacity to increase productivity and control the economy. We're actually going backwards, not forwards. So if this is what has happened, are you with me? Then we need to take a very
cursory look at,
not cursory, fundamental and strong look at the situation and say, look, let's come together. I know it sounds a bit utopian that we shall ever come together, but if for nothing else, you've tried everything else.
Yes.
You've changed governments, NPP, NDC. You have gone from, free market, central control market to free market. You have done all these things, and you are not getting the desired result compared to some other people. So the question then is, can we stop and take another look and not just rely on this, fantasy that somehow on this treadmill of the IMF, you can make small changes in the speed of the conveyor belt and you won't sweat so much, But at the end of the day, you will get tired somewhere and you will get thrown off it. We need to have a different way of going about it. So, yes, having said that, we also need to stop doing certain things. The end of the day, if we borrow the money, we have to see what that money has done. If we have income streams coming in from oil, we have to see what that has done. And we have to compare that to how those streams were previously used and how they're now being used. That's a very fair comparison. What was achieved with these monies before and what is being achieved now. And that informs us that we have to have greater control of ourselves. And if we can't control ourselves, we then have to institute measures within our system of governance that gives us narrower latitude for maneuver and forces us to move in a certain direction.
These are things coming from somebody like you with all of the experience in various countries, in Tanzania, in Southern Africa, and so on and so forth. So you've seen it work in other countries. Are they listening to you?
Well, I think, we
need the economy to work.
The issue is you have a system in which people only listen to themselves. Because of the adversarial multi-party political system, it creates silos in which this is a silo, this is how we are going to do things, and by hook or by crook, we're going to do it that way. How many times have people not called for people to stop and have a broader conversation? It's not happened. People have carried on doing things. And that's because of this issue of attribution. People want to say that, we made these campaign promises, are you with me? And we have delivered on them. And they will continue with their approach even when it is clear that they are not delivering on them. The storylines will change, but the reality will be there. So we have to say that, no, we've heard this over and over again. People don't want to admit it, but now we are seeing in retrospect the advantage of what Achampong tried to do in Unigov. And that was because he knew what we were like as Ghanaians. He knew that if you get the ball for your side, you will run away with it in your corner and nobody else will see it. Are you with me? So he said, no, let's fix this ball in the middle of the room
and let everybody
participate.
Yes,
we'll
exactly.
monitor each other. And when you have behavioral patterns that are well established, and no matter what you preach, they will be played out, then you have to find another way. Are you with me?
Exactly.
Of putting in, and that is basically what we are saying now. That's why there's all this noise about the Constitution. You know, what are we going to do in the Constitution? More or less to not to handcuff people, but to limit the excesses, to limit the ability of people to just go ahead, take contracts and pass them in Parliament, to limit the ability of the president to simply manipulate the opposition, even including the majority, to have his way. These are all things that do not inure to the principles of democracy, which require participation and accountability. And if we as citizens, our participation is only limited to casting the votes, and thereafter, people will do anything they want without consequences, then what kind of democracy is that? So people are asking that let us look at this democracy we have, let us redefine it to make it work better for all of us, not just for a few of us. This is the critical issue at this stage. And if people are looking at the issue of making democracy work better for all of us, then we will have different economic choices. You see, people treat the economy as if it is something in a vacuum. They sit there in central bank, a Ministry of Finance, twiddle these knobs, and then out comes the economy. No, the economy is a living, breathing thing, and it is a function of the kind of government you have and how it conducts itself. Are you with me?
Yes.
Because it is one of the principal areas that government controls. So if you have a certain kind of government which controls the economy in a certain way, then you will get a certain result. And that, without having any sense of accountability, is where we are now. Because a lot of people are not happy, but what for do? Are you just waiting so that at the end of the 4 years,
you cast your ballot to change,
and then what happens after that? So we are saying that civil society must be up and doing. Indeed, we have to congratulate our civil society because they have been up and doing, except that, again, they are being suppressed or ignored. In fact, sometimes it is better to be suppressed than ignored. At least when you're suppressed, it takes some effort.
Yes,
from the other person.
suppression.
So as we are on this track now, yes, we're concerned about the economy, but we know that within the system of governance that we have now, it can only go a certain way. The corruption is already endemic. If you want to say that one group or another is responsible for the corruption, you can then go back and look at the indices of corruption. With each successive government, the indices of corruption have got worse. In other words, it doesn't even matter who is there. When you have a change in the government, it looks like it is an alarm bell for the corruption to increase to another level. And this pattern is well established, and we have all seen it. Nobody is denying it. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? Can this be solved by increasing the base rate?
Of course not.
Can this be solved by reducing inflation?
It's let me move and come to the budget itself.
Yes.
I mean, let me come back to the budget. Well, let me go to my producer put together some slides on some macroeconomic indicators. We'll see those slides, and I'll come back to the studio again with Dr. Michael Sakara, founder and leader of National Interest Movement. You all know him, I'm sure, as you saw him on the screen. Those of you who don't know the National Interest Movement, it has to resonate with you now. We all know his background and everything that he's been talking about in the sector of economics and agri. Stay with us. Let's see the slides. We'll be right back. So these are the expenditure measures. As put out some time back when the 2023 budget was being read, it says reduce the threshold on earmarked funds from the current 25% to tax revenue to 17.5% of tax revenues. Migrate all earmarked funds onto the GiveMace platforms and ensure they use the GiveMace platform to process all their revenue and expenditure transactions. This reform should be completed by end of 2023 and double the LEAP payment per beneficiary household from the current 45 Ghana cedis per month to 90 Ghana cedis and increase the number of beneficiary households from the current 344,185 households. These measures will increase the current budget on LEAP. It costs the figures from 197.52 over 3.
That's a good figure, yeah.
Yes. So increase the budget on school feeding caterer payment by additional 138 million in 2023. Continue with 30% cut in the salaries of the president, vice president, measures, ministers, deputy ministers, MMDCEs, and political office holders, including those state-owned enterprises. Place a cap on salary adjustments of state-owned enterprises to be lower than negotiated base pay increase on single spine salary structure for each year. So this is a tightening your belt situation. One of the things that Doc has spoken about. Now, the income revenue measures in 2023 budget, the income tax regime will undergo reforms to review the upper limits for vehicle benefits. Introduce an additional income tax bracket of 35% a return and withholding tax rate for gains on realization of assets and liabilities, and review the optional rate for individuals for realizations. So I think we can go on with this. We can jump this and come back.
Yeah.
These are the expenditure and revenue measures put out by government on how to the fiscal policies and the monetary policies. And today we are talking about one of the monetary policies, and it leads us to what we are expecting tomorrow. The finance minister should be saying. I mean, you have interacted with the layman on the streets. The Ghanaians, what they are feeling, how they are expecting. All of these figures will be there. But
those two broad categories,
yes,
in and out, basically expenditure and income. This is where most people are talking about. Because on the expenditure side, where they're talking about LEAP, yes, I mean, 344,000 people on LEAP, etc. You know, we don't have many safety nets in Ghana. It's not like the UK where you have a comprehensive social welfare system. So these, single interventions are the ways by which, the most vulnerable and affected are sometimes assisted. But when you look at even just bulk figure of 344,000, there are many, many more people than that. What percentage of the actual affected people is that? So, but having said that, half a loaf is better than nothing. Are you with me?
Yes, exactly.
So I'm not knocking it. All I'm saying is that it does not even begin to address the larger number of people who are affected. And having only 344,000 people, and then you're almost doubling the amount
of
from 45 to 90, their living costs and costs of living have increased by 6 times that. Are you with me?
Minimum rates.
Yes.
Very high
it's
now.
like if I have malaria and my temperature is 97, and then you say, okay, reduce it to 86. It is still far away from my normal body temperature. Are you with me?
This is how I like this analysis, because this is how the layman
Yes.
understands all the figures we are putting
Yes.
out and the data we are putting out.
Yes.
So the people that are watching us will understand it this way, that
Yeah.
you are injecting me. You say I should reduce my temperature from 97 to 45 or to 50. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, you see, from here, I mean, we've only dealt with one, which is LEAP. They had some other expenditure measures as well. All those basically are going to increase the cost of government. Now, They didn't talk about a key area which people are not happy with. They talked about reduction of salaries of ministers, a 30% cut. They didn't talk about cutting the number of ministers. Most people fundamentally do not accept that we need that many ministers in this small country of ours. And if there was to be some genuine show that in this democracy, when you hear people complaining, you respond to it, it will be that the number of ministers would have been cut down by now to at least 45, 60. Are you with me?
They make the argument that they pick these ministers from parliament, and so they are MPs already. There's significance.
Let's not go there. You have to cut your coat according to your size.
Right.
Okay? There are so many arguments we like to make in Ghana in order to spend money when we don't have money to spend. Are you with me?
Yes.
But the reality is that most people I know and I talk to are just not happy about this number of ministers. And I dare say that if this government goes to the election still with this number of ministers, it will be one of the major drags on them in the campaign.
The premise is for voting for people.
Absolutely. Because it is something which people have complained about. And yes, you've cut the salaries by 30%. But if you have the number of people by 50%, it is bigger than that 30% salary cut. What you say will be bigger.
I agree.
And people will have higher productivity because the same number of people should do more, or a reduced number of people should do more. So those are the simple things that people want to see, because don't forget, there was a time in this country, indeed, when the country made its most significant growth in terms of infrastructure, education, health. There were only about 30 ministers. And we managed. The same landmass. You argue that, it was fewer number of people, but all the same, it's the same landmass, administrating the same landmass. And so much was achieved with only those 30 people. So this is part of what I'm telling you. It is a disease of the system of democracy that we have chosen to have more people than we need, to have more ministers than we need, because we have to appease so many people in the system. And you end up carrying the baggage of all these people on the government budget. And it's not just their salaries. You and I know all the other things that go with them, the vehicles, the allowances, and all of these things. And when you compare that to other countries where they have even higher incomes, then you see that there is definitely wastage in the system.
But in all of these, though, we've mentioned a number of things. I'm writing some of them here, the number of ministers that we still have, even though they have said they are cutting their salaries, the vehicles they are using, the allowances, the expenditures that come. And it's very much on the high side. There are still people, maybe in government, who don't believe that it is as a result or our current state of, maybe you want to call it economic, for want of better words, mess. We are in it because we have problems internally. We have problems locally. We are not managing things well. It is as a result of the external factors, for example, the COVID pandemic, for example, the Ukraine-Russian war, and so on and so forth.
Look, those major issues, it's like wind and rain. I cannot say that it rained in this village and, that's why I got wet and you didn't get wet. You took umbrella from your house to walk to the next door, so you didn't get wet. But if I continue walking in the rain, of course I'll get wet. So there are measures you can do to minimize the impact of global events on you. And it has to do with how you manage the resources that are within your limits. Up till today, we're still having issues of accounting for the COVID funds. What is that about?
We are still paying COVID levy.
Yes. We're still paying COVID levy, and COVID is now over. So what is that? So there's a need to simply sit back and say, look, what is the bare minimum of expenditure that we need for an oversized budget for government. Now, that will not solve all your problems. Are you with me? But it sends out a message. When you are reading the budget and you have made a statement that I have reduced this government expenditure by this amount, and it's not just a relative figure, while the main elephant is still in the room, then it sends out a message that we mean business. We are about to make these cuts. It is also hurting us. Are you with me? If, for example, it was said that, because of ABCD, we want to reduce the expenditure on the running of all these V8s. So please, go and park all the V8s at Independence Square. Okay? Now, we are going to dispose of more than half of them. And the third of them that are left there, if you're going out of track, you're not limited to one particular one anymore. Just book one and take it. We'll just be managing it from there.
I'll come back to ask you whether we can do this as a country.
No.
Whether it is feasible as a country. Whether
I'm saying
the citizens and the people, maybe the chief executive officers, the ministers, the deputies, whether they will be ready to go by it.
The issue here is that in the state of crisis, I'm not saying that they would want to do it. That's not what I'm saying.
It has to be forced on them.
In the state of crisis, you take certain measures, are you with me, that send out a message that, look, we are really taking this seriously. If you saw all the V8s parked there and they were being checked out for specific trips, and when they're not being used, they're there, would you not say that, oh yes, the government is now serious about cutting expenditure?
And perception actually works
exactly.
in economics and managing the situation as well.
These are some of the issues. And the ordinary citizen must see to believe. It's not just a matter of hearing, because half of the reading of this budget, how many people can follow that budget in Parliament when we're talking about the ordinary people? Most of them can't. Even the so-called sophisticated people, are you with me? In this kind of dysfunctional economy that we are in, what do those figures actually mean in practice? And why are certain trends keeping going in the wrong direction in spite of all of these tweaks that we have? So there's a need, are you with me, for us to stop, I wouldn't say pretending, because people are doing things in earnest, so that's not an appropriate word to use. But there's a need to face certain realities on the ground in these budgets, in looking at the income and the expenditure. Now, there's another aspect of that slide that was shown, which I want to talk about.
Please do.
I don't know, it was the first one that he showed. I want to see.
If we can bring the first slide on the expenditure. It was on the expenditure. So expenditure measures. We had read that reduced threshold on earmarked funds from the current 25% of tax revenue to 17.5% of tax revenues.
Yes.
Migrate all earmarked funds onto the GIFMIS platforms and ensure they use
These are good measures. You see, at least the migration of the earmarked funds, they're good measures because it limits the amount of corruption that can happen and puts discipline into the system. Although sometimes it also increases the duration for payment significantly. So I would say that beyond these measures, they should look at how they can accelerate the payments. Because for a large measure, these reductions in tax that you are given, when somebody has a payment of 1 million cedis outstanding for over 2 years, what difference does that reduction in tax make to him? When interest rates in the bank are around 30%, you see? So this is the reality on the ground we're facing now.
And inflation is
when you
actually
give
also
some of these measures, actually find out what is really happening in the system and how it actually impacts on the person. Because at the end of the day, for the most part, you talk to most of these contractors, by the time they get paid, the bank has eaten most of the interest, most of the income through interest, you know? And then you say, oh, but we gave you a concession of this tax here and a concession of that tax here. But the larger truth of the matter is that the bank has eaten into it. And that is why now, when you go to procurement, are you with me?
Yes.
People then start front-loading all these costs. I know that I'm not going to get paid in 2 years.
And so let me raise the amount of money to this amount.
So that increases the wastage in the system. Now, no matter how much you keep tweaking, you're just making a dance. You go 4 steps, he goes 5. You go 5 steps, they go 6. Are you with me?
Yes.
So what we're saying is that why don't we stop the dance and say, look, let's set a rule. By this period, this amount should be paid. All contracts that are outstanding cannot go beyond 1 year. Now, when you set that ball in motion, it also means that the amount of money that you have is what you have to manage with, which also means that some of the promises that you made, you shouldn't keep them. Which also means, are you with me?
I am here.
That when you are in campaign...
It is different from when you are in government.
Exactly. You see, this is what all governments find out. How many times have we not had a new president come in? And then after the first 3 months, he says, well, I didn't realize it was like that. Who didn't say it?
All of them have said that.
Exactly.
Beginning from Professor Mills, I remember
Yes.
clearly when
Yes.
he said that
Yes.
it's different when you are in opposition.
You see, and that is because when you are there, you are faced with all these competing interests and competing demands. And the job of a president is not easy. But by the same token, nobody forced you to do it. You took yourself there. And you made certain promises. Now, you have to have the courage to come and say, look, I made these promises, but for the good of all of us, I'm not going to keep this one, and this one. Because if I do it, the effect on that will be terrible. So I'm going to do these ones, you know? And literally be honest with people. In addition to that, as we move forward from now to 2024, you know that this is going to be campaign year. So whatever measures that are usually taken in this mid-year term, are you with me? All the things we do to control that expenditure component, they fizzle out at the end of the year, and then the election year, they just triple what they normally are. And this pattern is there in our books. Are you with me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It brings me to a question which is not part of our discussions anyway. The political will to be able to make sure that all of these things that you are saying are curtailed or enforced. So you are in opposition, you come into government, you realize that the indicators, as you saw them from opposition, and the resources you have to manage and be able to go on the trajectory that you want, how you want the economic stability to be, how you want to control the indicators, how you want people to feel the economy, is not the way you felt when you were in opposition. However, we don't see an action, we don't see a plan, we don't see the will to take some decisive decisions, like we are saying, cut down the number of ministers, like we are saying, some expenditures are too big on the budget. You need to mobilize revenue or resources to fund some things and cut down the expenditure on some things. Are we able to do that? Before I come to you, we had put the number there. Sorry that I didn't announce for you to text, but we're still having a lot of text. I'll come back to Doc for that one, but let me read 1 or 2 messages. This one says, corruption, who says it will end when the citizenry has it in our bone marrow. The noise is loudest with the Jama guys because the collection bull is not with them. Ahmed in Tamale sent that one. Regards to Brang, GBRANG, in your house. He's taking the reality and is a president we refused to elect. Regards, Dr. Abu Sakara Foster. You didn't tell us your name. Good evening. I think we like theory too much in Ghana. This is how we talk. Good talk, but no action. Those in power know exactly what to do to make Ghana better, but it's to their advantage, and we remain like this. Wickedness, wickedness, wickedness. From Kojo in Newtown. Sent in that one. Nana Ekwamwa Watson, Ablekuma Central, says, good evening, Akwesi. I'm really struggling to appreciate the hikes in the policy rate when, of course, the previous hikes hasn't changed anything, and the governor of the central bank keeps sticking to the literature, which suggests that when inflation is up, policy rate has to be increased to mop up excess liquidity in the system. Nana Akuamua Boatin Ablikuma Central, aka Dr. Mbaumia, is coming, sent in that one. Doc, let me come back to you in the studio. I was on the point of whether there is a political will to take some of these decisive decisions.
Yeah. You know, I think when we ask that question, we assume that politicians don't want people to love them and say that they have done a fantastic job and that, you know, they have delivered on all their promises. There is that will. The question is, when you're faced with the reality, will you make the right decision? You see, the temptation on the other side is greater than that will. We all have been through this, where there's something you want, are you with me? But you know that you cannot afford it. And you know if you expend that money, what the repercussions it will have on you at home. Now, it's up to you at that time to decide, do I want to discipline myself, or do I want to take that, make that expenditure, are you with me, and bear the consequences? So right now, the issue we have here is we must encourage the system, the political system, to evolve where it compensates for that lack of political will by having more clearly defined measures in place for control of expenditure, by having more clearly defined measures in place for the things that will be done and not done. And this is why it's been argued that if we can come together and have a medium to long-term national development plan and agree, these are the milestones for our journey. We're going to go from here to Kumasi, and these are the milestones in Sawam, wherever, on the road to Kumasi, no deviation. So for this segment, we have this much petrol, let's use it and drive at this speed to arrive at this destination. When we get there, we will find some other fuel to take us to the next step. That is long-term planning and development. But we get into the car, and somebody decides, you know, I have a pressing need to go to, Volta region to see my wife or whoever. So we detour from there, go to Volta region, then come back, through the road to Eastern region. And then when we get to Nsawam, you say that, the fuel is finished. Of course the fuel is finished. You made that choice. And that is what is confronting us now, in the sense that because of this adversarial system and the need to have attribution, people make a lot of promises, then they don't insert the sifting mechanism to decide what is most important in terms of a national interest, and leave their partisan interests as subsidiary. Not leave it out completely, but where it is necessary, let the national interest take precedence. No, it is partisan interest and personal interest. And in making those decisions, you see it in the nature of contracts, when contracts have been revoked, reassigned again, and the means by which it is done, it's only God who knows. Are you with me? You don't even understand. Even amongst themselves, they quarrel about it,
Yes.
And simple things like that. So when you ask about political will, where is the relevance of political will in these matters? When you are deliberately going off the planned journey, are you with me? And going to places that you want to go to at the cost of all of us. So this is all we are saying, that if one successive government after another, these things keep happening, what can we do? Can we not adopt a system where we have a longer term plan and we work within that plan and make those commitments within that plan and follow it? Because at the end of the day, all that has happened in the comparison between us and the people we like to say have graduated, the Malaysias, the Singapores, and all of this, is that they had a plan, they followed it, and there was continuity and accumulation from one administration to the other. Those are the simple things. I mean, you can't change that. There's no way you can develop by substituting those things for, oh no, we want erratic behavior, we want to do what we want to do, and then we'll still have the same amount. That doesn't work that way. And it has nothing to do with ideology. Are you with me?
I agree.
It has to do with management and the discipline in the system and the joint commitment that we all have to follow a particular plan. And when we are reading these budgets, of course, we'll be trying to make corrections. But at the end of the day, are we really on the path that we should be on?
Unfortunately, our time is up, but let me break this news to you that it had earlier been put out. I intentionally did not announce because we had not fully confirmed that the reading of the budget, which was supposed to have taken place tomorrow, the 24th day or the 25th day of July 2023, will not happen. It will not happen. It would rather take place on the 31st day of July 2023. So it was going to take place 25th, which was Tuesday, tomorrow at 11 a.m. We're expecting the finance minister to be on the floor of parliament, but it will now happen on the 31st, Monday, 31st day of July 2023. But of course, we are still here talking about it. My time is actually up, but there are so many points put across. I'm sure if the finance ministry is watching, they may want to take some points from here and most importantly, consult on some of the things that they need to put together. Somebody had sent a message. Let me read this one. The excess liquidity the Bank of Ghana wants to clear from the system by increasing policy rates are with Nanado. Bank of Ghana should case for it. Ima from Ahushi. Well, that's very political. This is a business platform, and somebody is also. Please ask Doc this last one for me. Is he expecting the taxes to be cut, especially? I'm sure you want to refer to the COVID levy. You have mentioned COVID. Daniel Yabua, also from Ahushi. Are you expecting COVID levy or any of the levies to be touched?
Well, I think let's talk about taxes in general, because the specific ones do not really add very much, even though I must say that the income derived from the COVID levy seemed to have increased significantly and it made a significant contribution. But nonetheless, the issue is the tax regime vis-a-vis businesses and their capacity to increase production and therefore productivity as well, and then employ more people. Or even these days, we're even just talking about retaining the number of people, because there have been so many other costs that are not tax related. For example, cost of energy. So many increases.
The utility costs.
Yeah, utility costs, that it has gone beyond all these tax cuts that you have. Then you still have the tax increases. So essentially, we are killing the goose that is laying the golden egg. And we would like to see that those tax regimes are enabling our local producers and processors to be able to expand their businesses, employ other people, and compete in the marketplace. Right. If we see budgets that increase taxes to put uniforms on people, which we now claim have increased employment, that is the wrong direction. Nobody should be rewarded for increasing the expenditure on the public sector.
I get the drift. But unfortunately, I have to end here. But if we have the chance, we'll come back to you to talk about taxation specifically. And then, of course, we can't have you without talking about agric. We'll come back to also talk about agric, the fundamentals of the economy, and developing the entire chain of the economy through agriculture. But for now, let me say a very big thank you to you for making the time for us tonight. We are very grateful and taking us through some of the things that we are supposed to be thinking about towards the reading of the media review budget. Dr. Michael Abu Sakara is the founder and leader of National Interest Movements. And my name is Kwesi Afri. I'm your host for The Bottom Line. Good evening.
Thank you very much, Kwesi.